I'm feeling bored, yeah, let's take a flight. Might go to Phoenix, might see Hawaii. I'm loving all the views even at night. On my mind.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. I'm finally ready to install the front big brake kit on the Acura TL. So we can go from this to this. If you guys remember, I already upgraded the whole rear brake setup. With the help of a custom bracket, I was able to install bigger calipers, bigger rotors, and upgraded to stainless steel brake lines all around. After doing the rear upgrade, I want even more braking performance. Now I have some time to do the fronts. Let's go through all the parts that I'm using for the front big brake kit. Alright guys, so this whole setup, including the calipers, the rotors, and the brake pads, is called the 17Z/18Z. These parts are coming from a Porsche Cayenne, Audi Q7, VW Touareg, and we'll be going from a 4-piston to a 6-piston caliper. Pretty insane, guys, and look how big this caliper is. This thing's freaking huge, and I thought the Brembos on a TL was big. And same thing with the rotors. These are 350 millimeters compared to the TL's 310 millimeter. These brake pads are ridiculous also. These are from Power Stop. Some other small things are needed, including like a different banjo bolt size, hub rings for the rotors, and most importantly, this kit from Jonah, aka Base6MT on Instagram. This swap is possible because of him. He did all the research for this. He even track tested it. He has a whole install guide and write-up. I'll leave his info in the description box below. I even printed out his install guide right here, just as a quick reference so I don't have to keep going online for it. His kit comes with everything that we need to convert over to the new setup. Something important is a drill template that he includes. The holes on the 18Z caliper does not match up with the TLs, so you do have to drill out new holes using the template. Just as a disclaimer, per Jonah's instructions, it's recommended that when drilling out the new holes, it should be performed by a professional machinist with proper equipment. I'm clearly not a professional and do not have the proper equipment. With that being said, I ended up drilling my own holes. No idea if I drilled it in the correct spot, but we'll find out when it comes to time for install and testing. First, I filled up the OEM hole with JB Weld, as you can see right here, the gray part, waited for it to dry and then smoothed it out, lined up the template like so, outlined that hole, and then started drilling. Took some time and it was super messy, but I got it done. Like I said, Jonah does have the full write-up on how to install it properly. This is why I haven't spray painted the calipers yet. I do need to know if I drilled it correctly and make sure it runs 100%. I can always paint it when it's on the car, just like how I did with my TL's Brembos. After that, everything else should be straightforward, just like a regular install with the calipers, the rotors, and the brake pads. Now, some things I'm anticipating are issues with removal and install. In the case that I want to revert back to stock, I want to make it as easy as possible. For removal, I read that people have tons of issues with removing the calipers. The threads on the calipers tend to get damaged. So in anticipation of that, I got some thread inserts. If I do have any damage, I'll drill it out, pop one of those things in, and it should be all set. But another problem that I'm anticipating is bleeding the brakes. For some other TL owners that already completed this swap, they had to fully bleed the brakes multiple times. So I'm gonna need a couple extra bottles of brake fluid. Another issue I may have is wheels. Since these calipers are much bigger than OEM, I may have clearance issues, but we'll worry about that when the time comes. Now, with all that being said, let's get started with the install. Alright, so game plan is I'm going to work on one side first, take notes during install. I got the car jacked up, the wheels off. I got to remove the brake pads, the calipers, and the rotors, then test fit the 18Z setup. Fingers crossed that I drilled the holes right. With that all being said, let's get to work. Whew, taking a lot of energy to remove these caliper bolts right here. And this is what I'm talking about, guys. See this? The caliper bolts, the one that holds it, the caliper to the knuckle, it's stripped at the very end. So if this is stripped, that means most likely the internal threading of this is stripped too. So now I gotta take this brake line off, but before I do want to test the 18Z setup, at least the calipers, to make sure that the holes line up correctly. I do have to take the brake line off, but before I do, I'm just gonna remove this 10mm bolt right here just so I can remove the TL calipers to the side and test fit everything from the 18Z. Guys, I just put the 18Z caliper next to the OEM one. Look at that. Check out the size difference, guys. Oh my god. Look how big it is, guys. That's huge. This brake setup is freaking huge, guys. It's looking like I gotta cut this part of the brake shield off, probably in a straight line. The holes are looking like they line up, so that's good. Let me just test them out first. Yo, check it out, guys. Nothing is bolted on, but this is how it looks. Dude, this looks freaking dope. Like how much space there is. It's like a good, like, I don't know, 1.5 inches. That's crazy. Obviously we don't have brake pads yet, but it looks like it does mount. So it's looking like we can proceed. Yo guys, I got this side by side. Check it out. This thing looks puny compared to the 18Z one. This is pretty insane. Like, check this out. Oh my god. You can literally fit it inside there. Alright, before I bolt these calipers up to fully test fit everything, including like the hardware and everything, these things right here, I forget what they're called, but they basically sit right there on the inside. Now we got to reverse them for top and bottom. Just threw on the RPF ones just to see how fitment is, and this thing looks beefy. Like, there is a small rubbing issue, and I do have some 3mm spacers lying around. Nothing is bolted up, like I said, because this moves a little. These wheels are 18x8 plus 30. This one has like wheel weights right there. It's wheel weights right there, and they actually hit the caliper. But overall, this is looking really good. Now I'm using the custom hardware provided from Jonah. This is how it's set up. As you see from the bottom, it has this custom washer right here. I already drilled a hole for it, so we're good to go. We can install the 18Z caliper. Just clean these off real quick to have a better mating surface. I do have these plastic hub rings that just go right that, so that the rotor can sit more flush. If you guys look closely, see that there's like a few millimeters of clearance that is missing if it didn't have the hub ring. I don't think it's necessarily needed, but it helps make sure there's no like extra vibration, then it makes it fit a lot better. And looking from the side, it looks like there's no issues with rubbing of the dust shield right here, so that's good to know. Now time to install the caliper with the necessary hardware. The kit did come with a little metal sleeve, and it goes on top. I did confirm it with Jonah, so it goes on top. I just inserted that black bolt through here, and you got to pretty much line it up with this nut. So what I did was I basically grabbed a wrench and put it like that so I can line it up. So I'll feed it right in between right here, put the bolt through like that, and then start turning it over here. And once again, I confirmed with Jonah, there's a regular washer that you use for the top and this custom washer for the bottom. Just torque this down. Obviously do it with the torque wrench. Don't be like me and just do it by hand. Down. I tested it out because I spun this. We don't get any rubbing issues. And these are the brake pads for the 18Z. Look at the size difference, guys. Like the Brembo brakes are no joke. But these, yo, this is some serious stopping power, guys. Like look at that. It looks like probably 1.5 times the size of this. That's pretty insane. These are from Power Stop, nothing too fancy, but also this isn't the cheap stuff. Let's get them installed. Wow, I think the brake pads are actually pretty easy to install. I just slotted them in, and you have this piece right here along with this little bolt, so it goes through like that, and you just tighten this part. Then there's also this little bracket, so I think it goes exactly like this. I'll push this down right here all the way through. There's a knot. This lines up as a notch. We'll screw this in, and I think that's it. Yeah, pretty easy setup, guys. And I remember seeing a discussion online about these little, like, they're like brake weights, and I think we should just take them off. I'll worry about that at a different time. I think these, at least for the 18Z setup conversion, I think it's useless. For OEM, maybe it helps with like vibrations or something, but yeah, these need to come off eventually. So I'm at the step where we need to transfer the brake lines. Unfortunately, the Type S brake line is like a kind of like a hard line that's threaded, and this is completely different. This is the proper banjo bolt that needs to be purchased separately. This is just like the rear setup, and it doesn't match up. So in Jonah's instructions, we do need to replace this brake line. This was a little oversight on my part. I needed to do a parts run and grab these. These are from the 2004 to 2008 Acura TL base automatic, which you see these fittings. These right here will made up with this. Luckily, the parts store had these in stock. So what I got to do is remove that brake line, install the new brake line into here. All right, just testing this brake line out real quick. It bolts up, no issues, and it's long enough to reach this brake line right here. So I'm gonna have to kind of route this in a way that is out of all these components right there. Maybe utilize this bracket right there, zip tied and whatnot, and it'll just go like this. I'm kind of missing out now because this is a stainless steel brake line, and I'm going back to rubber hose. Maybe in the future I'll convert these back to stainless steel, but for now, just to get this up and running, this is going to go to that. So to avoid as much brake fluid loss as possible, I already have this hooked up. I just need to tighten it, remove that, plug this in. And here's a quick update on the brake line, the way I routed it. It goes right there. There's like a little gap right here. Then it goes right there. I do have a couple zip ties just holding it in. I do want a nut and bolt setup, but this will do just to get it up and running. And then right there to the OEM line. I already turned the wheel left and right. No rubbing issues whatsoever with that line. We do have to bleed it. I'll be doing the old one-man bleeder trick. Did some quick research, and you need to do the outside before the inside, basically following the general rule of bleeding the brakes that are the farthest first and then move up to the closest. Fortunately, I should have done the passenger side first, but it is what it is. I'll probably come back and bleed this out after I'm done with that side, but outer before inner. I'm gonna crack it open and see if it gravity bleeds. We'll see what happens from there. Hey, good news, guys. It did gravity bleed. I was a little worried because I waited a minute, nothing happened. And this is about, I don't know, like 3 or 4 minutes later. But yeah, it's gravity bleeding by itself, so that's really good to see. And just as a precaution, I'm going to gravity bleed the inner before I start fully bleeding the outer. It just seems right to me to make sure that, you know, brake fluid is fully in the caliper. It just makes sense to me. I'm not sure if it's going to do anything, but I guess just as a precaution. After a good 2 or 3 minutes, I see fluid coming out. Everything is working up to be really, really good, guys. Something that I'm noticing, guys, is that I'll come over here and see the brake fluid. There's more fluid going into the system. So normally I would get about like 15, maybe 20 pumps before I have to refill it. In this case, it's about 10 pumps and then I got to refill the brake fluid, which is pretty insane. And it already goes to show that this whole system is taking a lot more brake fluid. These calipers didn't come with the little like nipple covers, so definitely got to scoop them up. I'm gonna say this side is complete for now. I might have to re-bleed it after I do the passenger side. I finally found my 3mm spacer. This one should be enough. Now that I have this all complete, I'm gonna throw the RPF ones on. This is with the 3mm spacer. And look at that, guys. It provides just enough clearance. Look at that. Perfect. And I feel confident about these lug nuts getting enough torque. I still think it's rubbing against that wheel weight. No rubbing issues over here. This is such good news right there. So I don't have to get new wheels just for that big brake kit. All right, guys. I'm gonna follow the same exact steps for the passenger side. Now that I learned everything that I need to learn, this should be a lot faster. So let's get to it. Got the caliper off, got the rotor off, and you guys see any difference? There's no dust shield. So one random day when I'm driving to work, I hear this really bad metal to metal scraping. The thing just flew off, so I don't have to cut anything because I don't have anything. So on to cleaning this up and continuing on with the conversion. So once again, guys, do as I say, not as I do. Torque this to spec. I didn't. I just hand tightened it as hard as possible. But you do want to tighten this nut and bolt setup to the proper torque specs that Jonah has provided. Oh my god, guys, yo, these look so good. I've been dealing these for like a month now. No track news, intense braking, or anything like that, unfortunately. I live in a very busy city and there's always so many cars around, so it's really difficult to test these things out. But I did do a quick video of me testing out the brakes on the way home from work. So I'm going 75 right now. I don't think it's cops. I'm going 75 right now. Decelerating to 70. still going. And I'm gonna brake. Oh, fuck. Alright, there we go. Stopped. Woo. I hope you guys heard the brakes lock up because that was insane. Dude, I broke really late. And that was a stop sign too. Oh god. Woo. That made my heart skip a little bit. Alright guys, so here's a quick review of the 18Z big brake upgrade. For the install, it's pretty straightforward. Just make sure the new mounting hole on the caliper is accurate to avoid any issues. Take off the old stuff, install the new stuff, bleed the brakes, and you're pretty much good. Braking performance is definitely improved over the stock Brembos, and the setup is super beefy, so you're gonna want to plan ahead for your wheel setup. Whether it's adding some spacers or grabbing some more aggressive wheels, once you get everything dialed in, it looks good and it performs amazing. Now on to breaking it down in more detail. On the performance side, I wouldn't say it's a significant improvement over the stock Brembo setup, but it's a noticeable improvement nonetheless. And that's just a testament to how good the stock OEM Brembos are. Very hard to describe brake feel, but I'll try my best. The best way I can describe it is in thirds. The first third, the second third, and the third third. There was no noticeable change in brake pedal feel, so when I'm describing it, I'm describing braking performance. The first third feels like stock, no improvements there. As for the second third, you'll feel immediate performance. The car definitely wants to stop, and you're definitely gonna jerk forward if you're not careful. So you kind of have to ease into the brake pedal. As for the last third of the brake pedal, honestly, it's completely unnecessary. I've only stomped on the brakes a couple times for testing. It's capable of locking up the front wheels. And if I'm in an emergency situation, I have the confidence to stop on a dime. And lastly, for performance, this thing doesn't get hot at all. I remember driving on the OEM Brembos for about like 30 minutes and it gets fairly hot. But with the 18Z setup, this thing just barely gets warm. So you know it dissipates heat very quickly. Now for me, the most difficult part in this 18Z upgrade was drilling the new mounting hole on the caliper. It has to be very accurate, so that's why I recommend bringing it to a professional. I messed up a couple times. To fix my mistake, I had to add more JB weld, wait 24 hours for it to cure, and then try to re-drill it again. One thing that surprised me in a good way was bleeding the brakes. I actually didn't have to bleed the rears. I bled the driver's side once thoroughly, passenger side bled that thoroughly, back to the driver's side and bled it very quickly. Brakes don't feel squishy or anything, it feels completely like stock. Now to move on to things that I want / still need to do. I need to buy some nipple covers for the bleeders. They'll look cleaner but also help prevent any issues. I still need to test fit the Type S wheels. I'm not sure if 17-inch wheels will fit this new setup. I still need to go to a wheel shop so they can rebalance the driver's side wheel. A new spare tire. Gotta search for 18-inch spare tire just in case. I think one off a G37S might work. Same bolt pattern, and it does have a beefy front brake setup also. And while we're on the wheel subject, I do want to get a new winter wheel setup. I don't want to use my RPF ones for winter, so I gotta figure that out. I still want to fully convert to .4 brake fluid, so that means I have to fully bleed out the brakes front and rear. As for the brake lines, I do still want to convert the fronts back to stainless steel, so that would be a good time to do the .4 swap. And you guys already know I want to paint the calipers a different color. I kind of know what color I want to paint them, but I'm open up for suggestions. Let me know in the comments down below what color you would like to see them. Anyway guys, that wraps it up for this video. Hope you guys enjoy as always. Catch y'all on the next one. Peace.